sidestepped into the hall. Zamka slammed the door and Patch faced Preslin. Preslin finished the cigarette with a puffy flourish and twisted it into a simple metal ashtray on the side desk. He looked the part of an agent, perhaps more than the others. They were administrators, but Preslin seemed to live up to the image. He pressed his lips, a kind of fatherly gesture, as he positioned himself around 10 feet from Patch. There are people in East Berlin who long for freedom. They were willing to risk anything just for a taste of free life. Do you and any of your people know anything about a human being's longing for the ability to chart their own course? Why would I think otherwise? Asked Patch. Because you work for the Russians, and so does your girlfriend. Dropping you in here. So clever. Not true. I know my story sounds like science fiction. We brought people longing for freedom into West Berlin through the tunnel, till the snow melted. I think you need to talk with people who yearn for freedom, Captain. People who were forced out by Fidel Castro and his thugs. Listen, you're working for Alexander Moon. Moon was before my time. I'm trying to prevent nuclear attacks in the future. So you say. Tomorrow you will get to know people who will not tolerate any communist tricks. You will meet exiles from Cuba. And some of those soldiers are fighting for freedom. I'm not a communist. Spend some time with those people, Captain. Let's just see what happened to their homeland. You'll have the opportunity, under close scrutiny of course, to answer questions you might not have answered from me. Patch respected how Preslin forced the issue in this chess match. The dark world of mind games would be futile, but the admiration melded into intimidation. He would tell them about Higgins. It would be a matter of time before they located the doctor and prevented his pending defection to the old Soviet Union. Patch spoke with the clarity of a public address announcer. Dr. Stephen Higgins. Preslin stopped and rotated like a panning security camera. And who is Dr. Stephen Higgins? What relevance does he have to this operation? Patch stood and walked slowly across the room to Preslin. Except for his blinking, bulging eyes, he didn't flinch. You'd better locate him. Why? This man will build the nuclear bombs in 1986. Oh, come on, Captain. Cut the shit. Send Meinkewitz in here. Patch became annoyed at not being believed. Meinkewitz returned to the room and Preslin closed the door. Ray, who the hell is Dr. Stephen Higgins? Higgins does research up in Wisconsin. He's not high level by any means. I know of him, but I've never met him. He will be high level. He's about to defect to the Soviets sometime at the beginning of March 1961. Higgins, a defector? Makes no sense. Why him? Asked Preslin. Well, I suppose if you studied his politics, you'd probably find out. Patch looked at Meinkewitz. Listen, Higgins will mastermind the building of the bombs. Stop him from defecting and you have a good shot at stopping the nuclear annihilation. The program, unless he's already defected, was in early March 1961, and that's what Ray told me. Why did you tell him that, Ray? In the future, I told him, answered Meinkewitz. Preslin laughed for the first time. Okay, I'll accept this absurdity. Where can we nab this bomb maker? Menkiewicz's face contorted as if he had persistent indigestion. He paced between both men. The Soviets wouldn't want Stephen Higgins. It would be like a major league team going after a high school player. What do you want us to do, Captain? Asked Preslin. Don't let him go over. I'm not saying kill him or anything, just don't let him defect. Meinkewitz pinched the bridge of his nose. This man dabbles in quantum mechanics research on a low level. He certainly hasn't made a name for himself. Yet, you knew who he was. I don't remember him building nuclear bombs. I'll make some calls. We'll question Higgins. Preslin put one hand on Patch's shoulder and shook his other hand. You made the right choice, Captain. Now let's test your credibility. Chapter 14. Montego Motel, South Miami, Florida, Thursday, March 2nd, 1961, 5:30 a.m. Patch slept with his arm over Kate as the sunlight glowed between the closed blinds. A heavy knock at the musty motel's outside door caused him to sit up quickly. Kate pulled up the sheets. In his shorts and undershirt, Patch peeled back the blinds. 3 unknown men, probably Cubans, dressed in casual chino pants and light-colored shirts, milled about the parking lot. Who is it, Patch? Meinkewitz? No, I don't recognize him, Katie. Then a short, stocky guy in a light brown Aussie hat banged loudly on the door. This guy's off the wall. I'd better let him in. She wrapped the white terry cloth robe over her gown. Patch unlatched the door chain. He opened the door and the soldier stomped by him. The other men filed into the room slowly and surrounded him. The soldier flipped back his hat, revealing a sandy crew cut. He had a grating voice, and his face, already red and sweaty, looked like it came off a dog food can. Higgins' wife reports that he's missing, Kincaid, growled through gritted teeth. Just who the hell are you? Asked Patch, stepping forward. The soldier did a double take and then stepped nose to nose with Patch. I'm Sergeant Savage. You and your smart-ass story, Kincaid. Do you have any idea what any member of Intercept would do to you? We aren't fooling around here. Let's cut through it. Where's Higgins? Has he already defected? And how do you know all this? A little birdie told me. The serviceman clenched both his fists, and his neck veins bulged. Don't get cozy with me, asshole. Kate, frightened by the exchange, moved forward, but the two men in civilian clothes held her back. Leave her alone. Shut up. Savage removed his gun from the holster. Patch wanted to punch his face. This man, Stephen Higgins, was involved in things that, shall we say, would be very beneficial to the Soviets. He defected right here off Miami in early March 1961. You better pray that he hasn't already defected. The wide-eyed soldier grabbed his shirt. Patch tried to push his muscular arms, but found himself pinned against the wall with the gun pointed at his forehead. We're talking about United States security. You tell us how you knew about Higgins. Kate broke free. Leave him alone. He's telling the truth. Get her the hell out of here. Then he turned back, still clutching Patch's shirt. Screw you, Kincaid. You're a liar. A damned liar. I've told you, we came back in time. You're lying, and now you're gonna die, Captain Sci-Fi. We know this story was your cover, just to confuse us. You may have all the scientific answers to con Meinkewitz, but you don't con me, mister. A middle-aged man, hair-cropped, entered the room in military fatigues. His calm demeanor contrasted with the sergeant. Get this pit bull away from me. The soldier squinted. Then he spoke with a Louisiana or a Texas twang. Sergeant Savage has been following the Soviet presence in the Caribbean. Then you'd better send the Coast Guard out there, said Patch. He gazed down at the gun barrel and then into Savage's riveted blue eyes. I'm on your side, you damned idiot. We have people out there, but guess what, Captain Sci-Fi? You're going out there with us. Higgins mustn't be allowed to defect, even if you have to kill him. Fine. Savage released his grip and lowered the gun. We're all on the same wavelength, but you know more. Yes, I do. See, Bart? He said to the other soldier. Then he turned to Patch. Don't you realize with the wrong series of moves in Cuba and we could all end up in World War III? That won't happen, said Patch. In December of 1963, Kennedy met Castro in New York and worked out the peace accords. That's the way the history books read. Savage looked at Bart. Well, that's happy horse shit. You need to get to Higgins before he's brought to Cuba and then to Russia. Savage tucked his gun under his shirt again and stepped over to Bart. Either he's the most sophisticated liar I've ever met, or he really has come back through time. Where will Higgins defect? Off Miami? I think so. I treat your story very seriously. The shorter Savage moved in again and pointed his finger into Patch's chest. Guess what? You two are coming out with us later this morning. If Higgins is really defecting off Miami, we'll find him. Then you are taking my word seriously, asked Patch. When it comes to the Russians, Captain, I take everything seriously. Then he looked at the Latin men and Savage. Clear the room. I want a few minutes with the captain. Patch, said Kate. She can stay. Savage pushed the men outside and gave one last sneer at Patch before he closed the door. Bart sat on the edge of the sofa. I'm Bart Vanderborn, by the way. Are you in charge of this maniac? Listen, you'll gain a great deal of credibility, Captain, if Dr. Higgins is caught trying to defect off the coast. I would ask you to reveal your true identities or your handlers. We're telling the truth, stated Kate from the edge of the bed. Such a story is beyond my everyday experience, so I have to discount it. he said, exhaling the smoke across the room. Then, said Patch, we'll have to deal where we can come together, like the Higgins thing. True, he said as he moved over to the blinds and looked outside. I've got people out there who are willing to lay down their lives to get Castro out. I need to demonstrate. I'll be right there with them. Someone knocked at the door. A middle-aged man in a khaki shirt and pants leaned in the doorway, checked his watch, moved inside, and shut the door. He put on his glasses and read from a folded piece of paper. We're okay, Will, said Bart. Bart, this is from Atsugi, Japan. Dated 2200 hours yesterday. From a commanding officer, Colonel Kincaid. That's my father. Bart sidestepped to Patch and studied his face. Then he ran his index finger along the scar. Well, I'll be damned. That's an old scar. We're going out later this morning to search for Dr. Higgins. Can they get Colonel Kincaid and the son back here? Patch's stomach tingled at the thought of seeing his father alive again. He looked over at Kate, who smiled. Commander's working on that right now. Bart nodded. Brief Dan Preslin on that. Will crossed the room and checked Patch's scar. Son of a gun. I'm beginning to believe his story. Don't get carried away, Will, said Bart. Dan will contact Mike Choden, Fletch Knight, and Robert Ashcombe. Will nodded. Let me tell you something, Kincaid, or whoever you are. I met a guy, Jimenez, during the Guatemalan operation who claimed, he swore, he was not a part of Arbanez's regime. Didn't break his story till we overthrew Arbanez. You see, he didn't run. He was a part of that regime and he would have bolted the country. We followed him. He worked as an agent for United Fruit, but one of Colonel Aramis's people recognized him as a drug dealer on the side. He had his keel filled with bales of marijuana. We got the bales, and Jimenez is with his boat in the middle Atlantic Trench. And Amos is dead, said Brad, grinding out his cigarette butt in a coffee mug. Deke's point, Patch, is sooner or later we're going to find out who you and Kate really are and what you're up to. It might be better to stay alive. Will's point, Patch, is sooner or later we're going to find out who you are. It might be better to stay alive. I'll confirm the Preslin briefing, said Will as he exited the room. Okay, said Bart. If you have anything else to add, I will promise you this, Bart. I will divulge more information when we get Higgins. Good enough. Get dressed and let's get the hell out of here. He opened the door. For a moment, Patch heard several people outside speaking Spanish. Then the door closed tight. Kate stood and hugged him. These people are deadly serious, Patch. So am I, Katie, so am I. Chapter 15. Aboard the Rex, off Key Biscayne Island, Miami, Florida, Thursday, March 2nd, 1961, 9:06 p.m. Under the sooty smokestack on the Rex's deck, prickly metal cranes for unloading supplies reached like the antennas into the sky. A concoction of spent diesel fuel and salty mist mixed with the warm sea air. Patch stood against a painted steel railing. He gazed across the sparkling silver ocean and white sand beaches to the south of the high-rises. The hum of the ship's engines made it difficult to hear anything. They gave Patch and Kate Army-issued fatigues and matching baseball caps. Meinkewitz wore his windbreaker and khakis. The sunglasses issued to them by Savage when they boarded at the dock north of Miami reduced the glare on the water. The green and white flag flapped in the wind above them. It's not an American flag, Ray. Liberian. Ray, who are Bart Vanderboen and a guy named Will? Mineral traders out of a warehouse. Stock Island, not the Key West. Supposed to be exploring for oil off the dry Tortugas. It's a CIA warehouse controlled by them to run arms to Cuba. Their boss is Anthony Ponce, said Meinkewitz, pointing to the island ahead. I'd like to retire someday right there. Spacious houses with sleek boats docked out front line the ocean. What island is it? Key Biscayne. There's a beautiful golf course right down there before the bridge. Believe it or not, I played a round of golf with Eisenhower.